So guys, how many ears does Captain Kirk have?
I don't know. How many ears does Captain Kirk have?
3. The left ear, the right ear, and the final front ear.
Oh. I've got one, though.
Go on.
Why do Daleks like apples?
I don't know, James. Why do Daleks like apples?
Because an apple a day keeps the doctor away.
Oh, that's a good one, actually.
Go on, Sean.
You want to hear my one?
Do you have
Yeah.
one now? Yeah.
I do have one. So one day, Obi-Wan Kenobi, Luke Skywalker, eating in a Chinese restaurant. And Obi-Wan notices that Luke's really struggling with his chopsticks. And he says, "Luke, use the fork."
Hey. Well, welcome.
That was pretty impressive, actually.
Welcome, everyone, to another edition of Craftcast, the Freemasons podcast. And, Stephen, what are we going to be talking about on today's episode?
Well, we all love a special interest lodge, and this time we've got Science Fiction and Fantasy Lodge, number 10,016. Obviously, last time we spoke to the Football Lodge. This time, quite a different special interest, but certainly one with a broad range under its criteria that I think more or less everyone will be interested in something in science fiction and fantasy.
Yeah, and as we've just heard, a lot of manoeuvring for some absolutely dreadful jokes. So we've started
Most
early.
certainly.
I think a lot of manoeuvring for jokes. And I think just like with football, maybe a bit of rivalry between what we think is the best sci-fi and fantasy
Okay, James, what
program.
is
So-
your favourite sci-fi fantasy film, programme, comic?
Okay, so my favourite sci-fi program is Doctor Who. But my favourite sci-fi film, which is also my favourite film of all time, is the original Alien from 1979. A great film
With Sigourney Weaver.
with Sigourney Weaver, Ellen Ripley, yeah.
Yeah, I was traumatised by that as a child because there was the scene where
It's
they're...
an 18, Sean.
Oh, right. don't judge my parents. Probably watched it at sleepover or something. You know when they're eating at dinner?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I'll leave it there.
That scene, yeah. The classic movie
Good grief.
scene.
Well, if we've got any under 18 listeners, then you shouldn't be talking about it.
Don't listen to it.
Don't watch Alien, the original.
Well, the question
Stephen.
begs, Marvel or DC?
Ooh.
Well. I mean, to be honest with you, in terms of the characters, I really like Batman, but I feel like it's been let down by the quality of the movies. Marvel just seems to have completely won
Taken over.
Hang on.
that battle.
Hang on a minute. Are you saying that the Christopher Nolan Batman films were not good movies?
I would add that wasn't created as part of DC,
It's still a DC character, is it not?
but it's not a
Part of the
DC,
DC, yeah.
created film. It's not part of the DC universe.
We've started already, haven't we? We've started the rivalry going before we've even got the guest
but as
on.
I say, for me, as I say, the Christopher Nolan Batman films are obviously awesome, but I would then say the Ben Affleck Batman films
Terrible film,
are
yeah.
not my favourite.
James, does that mean you're a DC fan?
I would say
Big fan of Washington, are you?
I would say
Yes.
that I lean more towards Marvel, but probably only because I have seen more of them.
So many.
But Batman,
Yeah.
well, yeah, there are hundreds and hundreds, yes. But Batman, I think, is probably my favourite superhero, I would say.
Sorry, just to extend on what you said earlier, who's your favourite Doctor Who?
I'm going to have two answers, I think.
Okay.
I'll give you... So I think the ultimate Doctor for me is David Tennant, of course.
Yeah.
So I'm delighted that he's back for a cameo, I guess, for a few episodes this year. But I'm actually a bit of a Peter Capaldi fan as well. I think he played the
Malcolm
dark...
Tucker.
I thought he did pretty. Yeah, I quite liked
I think
it.
he
Actually.
played the dark elements of that character remarkably well, actually.
Yeah, I'll be honest with you, I'm not a huge Doctor Who fan.
Get out.
Sorry. I watched it a bit when David Tennant was doing it, and also when Christopher Eccleston was the Doctor.
For me, if I think of Doctor Who, I immediately think of David Tennant.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Or who was the other guy? Matt Smith.
He
We're
was
probably
good.
showing
He was
our
good.
we're probably showing our age here though,
Well,
because
You probably came into Doctor Who around Matt Smith's time.
Yeah.
I was a Christopher Eccleston guy. And you're probably, what, Tom Baker?
You're older than me.
well, I think David Tennant was the first Doctor that I remember watching.
Yeah, it was always a bit scary. I remember sort of thinking as a child, it was on at like 7 p.m. and you've got, the the statues where when you blink,
Yeah,
they move
the
closer
angel,
towards you.
yeah.
That's the sort of thing out of like a horror film or something.
And can I just talk about Doctor Who, actually? I've mentioned before about the Travelling Man podcast in the US.
Oh, yes.
That I was on,
Yeah.
and Jim Hall, who actually has just become a right worshipful brother.
Oh, wow. Congratulations, Jim.
Deputy District Grand Master,
Congratulations.
24th District of Ohio. But the way to tie it into this is that he admitted to me last week that he's only just literally a week ago started watching Doctor Who. Never seen it before.
Well, okay.
How do you get to be a right worshipful, never
I
watching
know.
Doctor Who? Come on.
And
Yeah.
What about
grew
you?
up with Doctor Who, right?
Yeah, I would say I grew up with it.
See,
Yeah.
I grew up, my thing was Harry Potter.
I mean, I love a Harry Potter film as well. Who doesn't?
If anyone's interested, I prefer Marvel. Just
Well, I was going to come on to you.
Well, yeah.
I mean, he's the right
assume
age
so.
for it, though, isn't
I mean,
he?
well, in fairness, I grew up with Superman and Batman and loved those, but certainly in more recent years, I loved the Marvel movies and the way all the movies link together and all the little Easter eggs throughout all the different movies.
Just a reminder, you are listening to a Masonic podcast, by
Yeah.
the way, for those that have just tuned in.
And I think, and actually it is
Should
a
we
good...
come back to that? Yeah,
Yeah.
sorry.
off when we're not recording.
Off-piste.
But I do also think that actually what this has demonstrated, this conversation, is how broad
Yeah.
an audience of people a sci-fi and fantasy lodge would appeal to, as
definitely.
we're about to get into with David. Shall we get cracking?
Yeah, let's actually talk about what we're here
Shall
for.
we actually do it? Okay.
Let's go. So we're here with Worshipful Brother David Leask, Secretary of the Sci-Fi and Fantasy Lodge. David, welcome to Craftcast.
Thanks very much. It's great to be here.
I'm really looking forward to this, actually. As a bit of a sci-fi geek myself, I've been very much looking forward to getting you in and talking about this very unique lodge that's been established. Can you just start by giving us a little bit of a synopsis about, what the lodge is about and where it came from and why it exists in the first place?
Absolutely. I think the first and foremost thing to say, though, is we are a working Freemasons lodge. We're not a dining club. We're not a social club. We are actually a Freemasons lodge. And the idea came about around 4 years ago, where two brothers up in Burton were playing effectively fantasy Freemasonry. Who would you put in every office from the sci-fi genre? So do you have a Klingon as the inner guard? Do you have Captain Kirk as the master? Do you have, all of those sort of things? And then it branches out. And when you hear a conversation like that, it drags people in. And suddenly everybody realised there's actually a lot of traction and there's a lot of closet science fiction and fantasy fans out there. So what better way to mix the two together, both in terms of a special interest and a love of Freemasonry. So that's where it came about, and that's when we started to get the ball rolling, probably back in 2018.
And what's different about the Sci-Fi and Fantasy Lodge from other lodges? Because I've heard some rumours about some of your, let's say, unique workings.
Oh, well, our ritual is proper Blue Book, because we've got members from all over the UK, so we're an emulation lodge. But I don't think there's any other lodges where the deacons carry lightsabers.
I would say unlikely.
Yeah.
Where the outer guard, the Tyler, carries a Klingon bat'leth. The Gavels, the Worshipful Master and the Wardens have Thor's hammers. And actually our DCs carry Gandalf's staffs, so you don't
brilliant.
mess with those. So that's every genre covered there in terms of science fiction and fantasy.
Brilliant.
I think that's a really good example of the Programme Master's view on yes, if, and not no, because you just made a very good point there of that you were a working Freemasons lodge. You stick to the emulation book when it comes to the ritual, but you're just adapting and doing things slightly differently in terms of wands of office, etc., and replacement for the sword. And why can't we do that? It's a yes, if attitude, which I love.
Exactly, and I think, let's be honest, going through the planning process, we had a lot of weird and wacky ideas. People wanted to change ritual. Well, that's a red line. We might get the odd make it so appear in there, but it's as the book says. The festive board, on the other hand, that's a different conversation. we can come on to that.
Absolutely. I have to say, I've never seen James so excited to record an episode.
Oh, God, yeah.
Craftcast. He has been like a schoolboy in a toy shop.
I am one of these closet sci-fi fans that you talk about. I love Doctor Who is my favourite sci-fi show. So I know you've extended me an invitation previously to come and visit, but I must take you up on that because I need to see this.
Okay, in that case, James, I'm going to ask a question that David mentioned earlier. Who would be your two deacons?
Oh my days.
Can I give my view?
Yeah.
Dumbledore and Gandalf.
Oh, good call. Good call.
Thank you.
Two very wise men, yeah, I would say so. I'd probably put those as wardens, though.
We'd normally say past masters because they'd be sitting at the back tutting.
That's a very good... Yeah, actually, no, I agree with you there. I definitely have Severus Snape as a deacon.
Yeah.
Why?
He's just got that presence about him, doesn't he? He's got sort of that darkness, that seriousness about him that I really admire. And good old Alan Rickman would have to be the embodiment of that character for sure. David, you talked to us about...
That was only one deacon. You're not getting away with that easily.
Okay. So let's say Severus Snape, and let's say I probably would go for...
Luke Skywalker?
No.
Why not?
How dare you?
Kylo Ren as the second deacon.
Why are you going so dark?
Well, you've got to bring some seriousness to the work. David, you talked about kind of where the lodge sort of came from. What was the reaction from Freemasons and from potential petitioners when you actually proposed this as, okay, we want to do this?
Well, we started going out through social media because it was on the run into COVID. So one of the biggest challenges we had was how do you get the interest where people need to actually meet in person to discuss it. So we did a lot of Zoom calls, and we ended up with people from all around the world expressing interest to be effectively founder members. But it wasn't until we started to look that there's certain criteria where you have to be a master mason for 3 years to be a founder. So that unfortunately meant there was quite a few people who couldn't. So they subsequently came in as joining members. And eventually we got it down to a group of 31 founders. It would have been 32, but sadly a brother passed away between the idea and signing the petition. So then in the midst of COVID and the lockdown, we've now got to get the petition, the form, signed by every brother, signed in person. So that was a big logistical exercise, getting it all around the UK. We didn't want to trust it to the post. Suddenly find we've got 30 signatures and it goes walkabout. So eventually, during 2021, we were able to then get the petition submitted. And then in November 21, we got it approved. And that was really all signals go, the green light to move forwards.
And I have to ask, why... don't look at me, Stephen, when I say this, because I know you're a Staffordshire Mason. Why Staffordshire? Why was that province chosen as the home province for the lodge?
For a simple reason, the two brethren who had the effectively the fantasy Freemasonry conversation were Staffordshire Masons, Worshipful Brother Mike Santapietro and Worshipful Brother Chris Priestley. And Chris was our Primus Master, and Mike, who's an APGM in the province of Staffordshire, is our Director of Ceremonies.
I have images in my brain about what that consecration must have looked like. Can you give us some sort? So a consecration, for those listeners that aren't Freemasons, is the ceremony that you go through when you're starting a new lodge. Can you talk us through the unique elements that you had within that ceremony that perhaps wouldn't have been seen elsewhere?
I think this was the one area that was the hardest because we had great ideas, but the consecration is a very serious ceremony. But the provincial Grand Master, two provincial Grand Masters who were officiating in one of the past assistant provincial Grand Masters, when they were given their effectively opening welcome, there was a lot of Star Trek quotes, live long and prosper, all of that. I think you suddenly realise that everybody, even the officiating officers, are all closet science fiction and fantasy fans.
Yeah.
So that really added to a lot. You know, there's 30 odd of us lined up in the centre of the lodge ready to, as the petitioners. It looked like a scene from the Death Star with the stormtroopers, you know, and
everyone's read these books and watched these movies, and invariably everyone, so many people at least have some favourites in that love something in science fiction.
Well, and it covers such an expanse. I mean, we were talking before.
Yeah.
Just to name a few things, I'm a fan of Star Wars, Harry Potter, Lord of the Rings, Game of Thrones,
Star Trek,
and I mean, I'm sure they're even more niche.
There is, and I think the one thing that we didn't want to do was alienate anyone, because a lot of the things we've talked about are what I would call popular culture.
Yeah.
So, the good old Star Trek, Doctor Who.
Sure.
But when you look at the gambit, both, the breadth of science fiction through to the classics, H.G. Wells, we've got some of the members who are quite active in understanding what's going on in the world of what's called the Hugo Awards, which is essentially the equivalent of the Oscars or the Booker Prize for science fiction literature.
Right, okay.
Similarly in the fantasy side as well. So, whether you look at, Aldous Huxley, all of the classics like that, or similarly on the fantasy side as well, Clive Barker. Everything is covered. We say both horizontally and vertically.
Right.
And are you primarily a lodge for existing Freemasons to become joining members of, or are you a lodge which initiates, passes and raises people? And if you do that, is there sort of an explanation process you have to go through with those new members to go, this is unusual.
This isn't normal.
This is not normally what would happen in Freemasons. The ceremony, yes, but the fact that I'm carrying a lightsaber around, you're not going to see that anywhere else.
Darth Vader.
Yeah.
Yeah. So as you can imagine, forming the lodge, everybody had to already be a Mason.
Yeah.
So effectively, the first couple of years are going to be pretty much like almost a past Masters Lodge, and we've put structures in place for progression and how people move forwards. But in December, we'll have our first candidate, and he's a friend of a member. So he's already had an induction. He's very much a science fiction fan. So that's a soft landing into where we really want to be, which is a primary lodge for bringing on board new members.
Do you think that he? I'm really interested on this particular point. Do you think that he would have joined what I will call a traditional lodge, or do you think the fact that you have these slight quirks around sci-fi and fantasy is a hook that's brought him in?
I think it's definitely a hook. One of the things that we always say, and there's a presentation that we've been delivering to a number of other lodges talking about the foundation of the lodge, is we almost draw a bit of a Venn diagram. We have, a traditional Freemasons lodge. Everybody's interested in Freemasonry, but everybody's then got separate interests. If I was sitting next to somebody talking about football, I wouldn't have a clue. But if you come to our lodge, everybody's got a love of Freemasonry, but they've all got a common love of science fiction and fantasy. So you've actually got the double whammy, and that really plays to the likes of the activities that are going on with the pathway in terms of engagement with existing and new members, both in terms of attraction and retention.
Well, in our last episode with a special interest lodge where we spoke to the football lodge, one of the guest that we had on was Alex Pike, and he said that his father was a Mason and he was interested in Freemasonry, but he needed that hook.
Yeah,
and so having that breadth of things like sci-fi, so many people, as I said, it's such a popular topic because of its breadth. There's so many different ways that people be, you've got Thor's hammer, that's really cool, or you've got lightsabers,
really cool.
And I can imagine that would pull people in, not just current Masons, but potential initiates as well.
Absolutely. So what we've done is we've agreed that one of our meetings a year will be a peripatetic or travelling meeting. So September just gone, we moved it to Derby. So we had a short business meeting on the Friday night, and on the Saturday it was a Doctor Who convention. So a number of the members went to that.
James was there.
I wish.
I tell you what, you should come to Gibraltar. We've got a science fiction convention. You should come along.
Well, you can't say no to
Can't
that.
say no to that
But what we're then looking to do as we move forwards and get more well established is actually start to potentially put a stand on at these conventions. So we were down at Freemasons Hall last month for the open day, where we actually had a stand for one of the 4 special interest lodges there. And see people's faces when they came out of the museum and saw those of us standing there in dressed as Babylon 5 character, or Morpheus out of holding a lightsaber.
Yeah.
People were like, wow, am I in a different building here? And the attention it was just grew and grew.
And something that obviously I know that you've done is taken candidates from other lodges who are busy doing ceremonies. They can't fit all of their ceremonies in their own lodge meetings, and like a lot of past Masters lodges do, you've taken our candidates, and that, from my experience, from knowing some of those candidates, has left a really lasting impression on them.
Absolutely. Well, what that's done, because there's nothing worse than a lodge where you end up. We had our consecration, and then what do we do? Do we do lectures? Well, it would be very interesting lectures, but what better way than a working lodge to North Staffordshire Round Table Lodge, University's Lodge of Staffordshire, perform second degrees for those candidates, and then they come back as visitors because they think, wow, that was great. So in our December meeting, we'll have a lot of people coming back who were there for those second degrees.
Talking about lectures, actually, I visited the Essex Cornerstone Lodge, did a Game of Thrones night, and Mike was there actually, and he did a really interesting talk about the lodge, and then was followed up by another member of the lodge who did a talk about the similarities between Freemasonry and Game of Thrones, which on the surface would appear minimal, but it was really interesting how he had woven them together, and it was brilliant. And then we had a banquet afterwards, and it was just someone Bernie dressed as the Mother of Dragons.
Of course he did.
Of course he did. And
shout out.
Yeah. And it was just amazing. It was such a good, and I felt like, you really hit upon something there.
Yeah.
And that's the key. It's fun. The important thing is we enjoy our Freemasonry, and we get there, we have a great day, and it's fun. People experience new things. I think the nature of the people who've joined the lodge, they're quite cerebral, so that somebody sitting down and thinking, actually, I can think about Freemasonry in the context of the Star Wars universe, or Game of Thrones, or Brave New World, or anything like that. And they've got the passion to go and work that detail out. It might be complete fiction, as in science fiction, or even fantasy, but hey, it's a good story at the end of the day.
What would you say your lodge's unique selling points are? Like, what are your traditions, if you like, that apart from the lightsaber and stuff? You talked about the festive board, and that's quite different. Give us a pitch for that.
Oh, well, so our tradition started on day one. Mike Santapietro, the ADC, the first words he said in the festive board as we brought, it is tradition in this lodge, and we were only consecrated 2 hours earlier.
Yeah.
So the procession into the festive board is done by essentially a military cadence. So rather than just clapping, you've got Mike does the first line of a cadence that talks, and then everybody responds with the second line, third line, and it gets everybody starting to be engaged.
Yeah.
Do you have stormtroopers taking you in?
Well, that's the other thing. So outside of the installation, cosplay or costuming or dressing up, for those who are a little bit more conservative, is actively encouraged at the festive board.
At the festive board.
Yeah.
Not in the meetings.
No.
That was another red line.
Yeah.
No dressing up like a wizard, as tempting as it was. But at the festive board, all bets are off.
Brilliant. Yeah. I think you really touched upon something at the start when you were saying, this really plays into that yes if, rather than no because attitude, and, a big part of the strategy is, as Freemasons, as a membership, embracing that attitude. And I think what your lodge demonstrates really is actually, in modern times, there is so much more that unites us than divides us, and actually pulling on one of those things and using it again as an attraction tool for Freemasonry it's just such a no-brainer, I think. And I'd be fascinated to see Sarah, to come along and visit and see how you guys...
I think we should.
How you guys do it. I think that would be awesome.
Well, everyone is welcome. I think that's the thing. Our mailing list now of the invites is out to some 400 Masons a meeting, and that's going up. We're getting interest through the various Facebook channels of saying, can you put us on the distribution list? So again, everybody's welcome. This coming meeting, we've a delegation coming down from Durham. About 19
Brilliant.
Masons coming 250 miles down, and their provincial Grand Master is coming down.
I was going to say, John Thompson, I'm sure would be... Sure would be that. Chaps, I think we should, going back to our earlier conversation, I think we should try and fill the principal officers in a lodge with sci-fi and fantasy characters.
Okay, let's do this.
James, you can start.
Where are we starting? Master?
Yeah.
Top down.
You see, I would have said Dumbledore, but we said earlier that would be a very wise past master. So if we're going to go for a youthful character...
could go with Harry Potter.
Ooh, the chosen one.
The chosen one. You could go with Harry Potter.
Or Luke Skywalker.
Or left of field answer, what about his son, Albus Severus Potter? Because Harry Potter's quite old now. The books were written...
Albus Severus Potter isn't 18.
I bet he is now, because the books were set in the 90s, right? So he's got to be 18, over 18 now.
That's one of the
you're right, that is left field. Yeah.
I told you.
Very left field.
Okay, senior warden.
He's not the chosen
Stephen
one.
Watley.
No, I'd still go Harry Potter.
Okay, so we're saying, so do we agree Harry Potter for Master of the Lodge?
I mean, I disagree, but I'll go with it. I'll go with it.
God. Stephen, senior warden.
Oh, I should have stopped arguing about that and started thinking about my future answers.
Dun, dun, dun.
Han Solo.
Why?
Because he supports... I mean, obviously he doesn't support Harry Potter, but he supports the chosen one.
You were the chosen one.
Yeah, in Star Wars.
What was that reference? I've heard it. I just can't place it.
That's episode 3, isn't it? When Anakin Skywalker's in the lava.
That's right.
And Obi-Wan's there going, "You were the chosen one."
Yeah. Nice. Yeah, I get it. I'm with you now.
Or it could be
That's
Obi.
a good one. I like that. Supporting the chosen one.
Exactly.
Nice. Okay, David, do you want to do Junior Warden?
Or Junior Warden. Well, I think that's somebody who's on a track to greatness, really, isn't it? So I think, if we're sticking with science fiction, because I have to say I have a bias for Star Trek, I'd probably put Riker of the Next Generation, because he's yet to take the chair. Top guy.
Okay, let's we've done the principal officers. Let's go down to the deacons now.
Okay, so he's got to be someone with a wand, right? It's got to be.
We're going back to Harry Potter now.
I'm going back to Harry Potter, and I'm going to say the main man, Albus Dumbledore.
Oh, so is this a past master that's going through again?
I wouldn't have him as a past master.
You mean like young Dumbledore, like in Fantastic
Jude
Beasts?
Law Dumbledore.
Jude Law Dumbledore.
Jude Law Dumbledore. And by the way, immediate past master Yoda.
Yeah.
Oh.
You see, the immediate past master in our lodge wears the hand of the king.
Oh.
Of Game of Thrones, because he's the right hand.
I think Yoda could be mentor.
Mentor, I was going to say.
Mentor, that's so much better. Yeah. Goodness sakes,
I'm gonna say Junior D can be Captain America.
See, I'd forgotten about Marvel.
Yeah.
Oh,
Marvel's a massive one.
Yeah, well, the Wardens get they've got Molyneux, the Thor's hammers, the gavel's sitting there, so they're all that's in the universe.
I was going to say for Innerguard, Thor, because you're not getting past him, are you?
Yeah.
Actually, for Innerguard, I would have said, what's his name from God of War? Kratos.
I've not seen that.
It's a yeah. Okay.
The room's gone silent now.
Wow, fine guys. God, sorry, I'm so niche.
But maybe
references.
Thor could be Tyler. Not Thor. Or Iron Man could be Tyler.
Oh, yeah, that's a good shout.
See, one of the things we're thinking about for Innerguard, particularly when a candidate goes out, is somebody from the Men in Black. And they've got their deneuralizer. Put the glasses on. Bing. You've forgotten it when you go out.
I like that.
Brilliant.
But we're saying Yoda, if we were to have him in as a past master, mentor.
Yeah.
Mentor,
Well,
definitely.
who would be Almoner? I think that's a good
we're doing the whole set now.
Good question.
We're doing all of
but
them.
Almoner's like I think an interesting question.
Okay, Almoner. I'm gonna go with my favourite sci-fi show. I'm gonna say the Doctor from Doctor Who would make a great Almoner.
That would be a good call.
Yeah,
that
nice
would be a
one.
good
You
call.
see, it was a good question.
Yeah.
And actually, our treasurer is referred to both in his emails and in the lodge as Quark. The Ferengi of Deep Space Nine in Star Trek, because he's all about the money.
That's a good one. Secretary.
Needs to be good with administration, corralling people.
Varys from Game of Thrones.
You're gonna
I could live with that, but you're talking about me there, guys. Come on.
another silence, but we do have the secretary with us. So
Yeah.
David, you know
that one's for
Varys.
you.
in case
I
you
do.
don't.
I do.
God, you guys need to watch more Game of Thrones.
Well, it's funny you should say that, but I must admit, on my on the email signature and the summons, we did have some images of various characters wearing the collars.
Oh, brilliant.
And at the time, we effectively had Captain Kirk had the Master's collar. Ned Stark was the Tyler with his sword, although he didn't last very long. And the secretary at the time was Gandalf. So I have a little picture, and I say wizards are never late. They arrive precisely on time on the bottom of the
Are you a wizard, Stephen?
You're a wizard.
I tell you what, you
You're a wizard,
could make the secretary Star-Lord in Marvel. Just because somehow, even though it's all so much to do, he somehow unsuspectingly pulls it all together at the end.
Very good, Stephen.
Is this a bad time to admit that I've never actually watched Game of Thrones? Not a single episode have I watched of that show.
Yeah, neither have I.
Okay, 50% of us.
Sorry, what I can't get my head around. Well, I get
Here
you.
it comes.
You're a student, you have no time.
Basically just turned 18.
You're a master of your lodge, right? And yeah, are you even allowed to watch it? Right?
Uncalled
But you travel everywhere. You are sat on a plane for hours on end. I couldn't think of a better thing to do than watch Game of Thrones.
Isn't it like 8 seasons of disappointment?
Yes. No.
But we have a strong link to Game of Thrones. So one of the questions you asked earlier was how did we keep people engaged, through COVID? So we had all the Zoom calls. So what Mike Santapietro did is he arranged for some cameo videos of some key characters
brilliant.
that we actually played in. And the first one was Claudia Christensen, who plays Commander Ivanova from Babylon 5.
Okay.
And she was congratulations on the new lodge. The next meeting that we actually had, we had Robert Picardo from Voyager, Star Trek Voyager.
Okay.
Wow.
He played the emergency medical hologram, the Doctor. And for the final one, and this was the Pierce to Resistance one, it was James Cosmo, MBE. And he, from Game of Thrones, plays Jer Mormont, the Night's Watch commander.
Oh,
the
wow.
big chap. And he was absolutely, genuinely excited.
Oh, that
So
is cool.
those, I think we've got those videos. They may be available on the website. I'll have to have a look, but I'll get you the link for those.
Oh, yes, please.
Just speaking of the website, David, if people listening to this think, I really want to go to that lodge, how can they get in touch with you to arrange a visit?
So easiest thing is drop an email or go to the website, which is sci-fi and fantasylodge.org.uk. On there, there's a contact us form. If you stick secretary at in front of that, so secretary at sci-fi and fantasylodge.org.uk, I'll get the email and we can open up the dialogue from there. Ping us on the various socials. So we've a Facebook page and group, or all of the usual contact points.
Amazing.
You certainly could have sold me on it just being a Star Wars lodge. When I was younger, I used to make lightsabers with, the cardboard inside of foil paper, paint it in a colour, and then wrap the last bit of foil around the bottom. And there's this picture of me when I was that only some of my closest friends have seen. That I was about 5 years old, standing there with one of these lightsabers that I made.
So fairly recently then.
All right.
Sorry, I had to go there.
Chaps, I feel like we could literally, this episode could run to be the longest ever episode of Craftcast. I feel like
Definitely.
I feel like this could be as long as Lord of the Rings, Return of the King, the Peter Jackson extended version.
Absolutely.
But unfortunately, I think we do need to
Or Game of Thrones, in fact, which went on forever.
He's still going.
watch it. David, it just remains for us to say thank you for taking the time.
Thank you
to
for
come and
inviting
speak
us
to
down.
Please
It's a pleasure.
do invite us to your next meeting.
We will do.
We'd be delighted to come along, and may the force be with you.
Live long and prosper.
Well, another big thank you to David for joining us today on this episode of Craftcast. I think we can agree, gents, as I just said, that episode could have ran for at least 3 hours.
Yeah,
Easily.
I think somewhat similar to the football one. When we did that, we could have just kept talking.
But as I said at the start, I think the thing is that it demonstrates how passionate people get about hobbies, and we see that obviously with Freemasonry, and that people do commit so much time and whatnot to hobbies. And what a fantastic idea to combine your two hobbies together and meet with people who share those hobbies and passions with you. I mean, that's great. And as we spoke about in the interview, it's an integral part of the strategy and building and developing that member experience. And I think special interest lodges have a real integral role to play in the development of member experience. I think that's really important.
I think also, for me, I'm not a member of any personally, but I would very much like to be, for example, if there was a chess one or a fencing one or a taekwondo, anything that comes towards my interest.
Since when did you do taekwondo? Did you do that?
I'm a black belt at taekwondo, yeah.
Oh my God.
Another thing on the list.
Another thing.
When I was 12, I got my black belt, yeah.
Oh, all right.
I mean, you did ask.
12-year-old taekwondo black belt. Wow, that's awesome.
Does that mean at 12 years old you could take down a fully grown adult? Or was it based on age and
No, I know it is not based on age. I used to fight with adults.
I was going to say, sorry?
Yeah.
When you were 12, you were fighting adults?
Yeah. From before that, actually.
absolutely battering
Before that? Yeah. No one get in the ring with you.
No, I mean, obviously, if someone's bigger than me, they kick me, I'll fly a bit further than if I kick them. But no, I mean, it's all to do with the technique and the discipline, obviously, with it. But
your playground bully must have had a hard time. I bet you had a quite easy journey through school, didn't you?
Well, I was a national sparring champion about 5 times, so yeah, I was fine with sparring. The point I was trying to make was that if you've got a special interest that you think would make a good special interest lodge, please write in, because you never know, there might be plenty of other people with that same special interest that are also writing in.
Yeah.
And this is how these things start, from these open conversations about things that we all have a passion for. And certainly, if you are also just interested in a special interest that already exists as a lodge, then go and visit. Get people travelling, even if you have to travel a little while to go and visit. I'm sure they'll very much appreciate it and welcome you with open arms.
Yeah, absolutely. And the other point to add is, we don't want this to be the final special interest lodge that we cover on the podcast.
Definitely.
So if you are a member of a special interest lodge, whatever it may be, do get in touch.
Yeah.
Come along. We want to hear from you.
Yeah, and please, if you'd like us to come and visit your special interest lodge as well, I'm always up for a bit of visiting. I'm sure my
Most
two
certainly.
colleagues here are as well.
Yeah.
Love a good
Let
visit.
us come and have a look at your special interest lodge and see what makes you special and unique.
Yeah. So with that, guys, thank you very much for listening. As always, James, you can do because you know them off by heart.
Okay. You can email us podcasts@ugle.org.uk. We are UGLE_Grand Lodge on Twitter and United Grand Lodge of England on both Facebook and Instagram. It really is the best way to get in touch.
I've already said the force be with you joke with David. Damn it, guys.
Oh, God.
Do we have any other sci-fi sign-offs?
I mean, live long and prosper, but he already said that as well.
Oh, did he say that
Yeah.
one? Okay.
I don't want to go.
What's that one?
It's literally David Tennant when he regenerated into Matt Smith. Anyway,
And on that
moving
note,
on. Let's go.
bye, everyone.
Bye.
Yeah, thank you very much for listening. See you guys soon.
Craftcast, the Freemasons podcast. The podcast is hosted by Sean Butler, Stephen Watley, and James Dalton. The producer is Marta Zandri, and the podcast is edited by Trisonic.